We continue now at the top of Daf Tesamad Aleph in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 9a. On the previous Amud Abaye said if Reuven sells a field to Shimon Shalo Be'achrayis, Reuven doesn't take any responsibility. And the Gemara continues Abaye's statement, V'yotzu ele asikan, and then people come and they protest and they say that field that Reuven sold to Shimon, that field was actually ours. Ad shalo hichzik ba. So if Shimon has not yet made a chazak on the field, yachol lachzer bo, so then he can retract. He could say he doesn't want to buy the field. Mishehichzik ba, but once he makes a chazak on the field, ein yachol lachzer bo. He's not able to retract. He has to go through with the sale. And the Gemara says, my time, and what's the reason he has to go through with the sale? The Amar Le, because he can say to him, meaning Reuven can say to Shimon, the seller can say to the buyer, Chaysa de kitri savart v'kabalt, a sack that was tied up, that was full of air, you decided to buy it, you understood that there was no achrayis, there was no responsibility taken over here, and therefore you assume the responsibility. Once you do a chazak on the field, you have to take the field, you have to go through with the sale, even though these individuals are protesting and saying that it's really their property. And the Gemara says, Me'emas havai chazak, at what point in time, from when is it considered a chazak, or what's considered a chazak on a field? Mechidayesh ha-mitzri. It's considered a chazak on a field when the person walks around, surveys the boundaries of the field. That's considered the chazaka. That's when the kinyan takes effect. V'davka shalo b'achrayis. And the Gemara says this is only true if the sale was made shalo b'achrayis, because then when the buyer bought it, he understood that he was the one taking responsibility, because the seller is taking no responsibility. Aval b'achrayis lo, but if the seller takes responsibility, so then the halacha would not be the same. And then in such a situation, the buyer can say, even after the chazaka, once he sees that people are protesting, he could say that he's not interested in going through with the sale. But there are those that say, no, afila b'achrayis nami, even if the sale was made b'achrayis, still once the buyer makes a chazaka on the field, so that sale is considered finalized, and he's not able to say that since there are people protesting, he's not able to say he doesn't want the sale to go through. Why? The Amar Le, because the seller can say to the buyer, Achvi tirfach, first show me the document that says that it was taken away from you. Only at that point in time, v'ashalim lach, then I'm going to pay you back. You can't say that you don't want to go through with the sale now because there are people protesting. Let that play out. Bezin will take away the property from you and give it to them. You'll have a document that says that it was seized from you, and then once you show that document, then I will pay you back because I took achrayis. Rashi says, even if he accepted, the seller accepted responsibility, because you're going to say at the end of the day, he's going to pay back anyway, so maybe now already at this point in time, he should be able to go back on the sale. Nevertheless, he's not able to be choser, because the seller can say to him, show the document of seizure, Bezin will write a document that says that it was taken in court from you, and then I will in fact pay you back. And the Gemara continues, Rav Huna says, O kesef o meitav. This is going back to the earlier contradiction the Gemara had. The pasuk said that meitav sadeu, meitav karmi yishalem, you have to pay the best of the field, or the best of the vineyard, but then it also said kesef, it said kesef yashav leva'olav, you pay money, and Rav Huna says it's not a contradiction at all. The answer to the contradiction is you have a choice, you can pay money, or you can pay the best. But the Gemara continues, Eisvei Rav Nachman l'Rav Huna, but Rav Nachman asked Rav Huna the following question, Yashiv l'Rabo shava kesef afilu subin. When it says kesef, it doesn't just mean you pay money, it says the word yashiv, and we said earlier that yashiv comes to include even if you give something that's worth money, even if you give bran, and so therefore you see it's not just kesef. So what do you mean that the person pays either kesef or meitav? He also has the option to pay subin, which really was the original contradiction. So how has Rav Huna resolved that original question? And the Gemara says to that, Hacham Mayaskin, and here what are we talking about? B'delesle, we're talking about a situation where the person doesn't have kesef, he doesn't have any land, so in such a situation, he can pay even subin. The Gemara says, Yiddelesle, but if he doesn't have, so pshit, that's obvious, of course, that's all he has, that's what he's going to have to pay. The Gemara says, no, Ma'u Detema, what might you have said? Amrinanle, that we say to him, Zil Tarach Zavin, that you have to be the one to bother and sell the subin and turn that into money. Va'isi le kesef, and bring money to the person that was damaged. Kamash Molon, that's what it's teaching over here. Rav Huna is saying that in such a situation, you're able to pay with the brand itself. And Rashi explains, Rav Huna Amar Lo Kasha Kroi de Le'el. Rav Huna says it's not difficult to psukim earlier, Kesef u'meitav, again, one said Kesef and one said the best of the land. Dahachi Kamar, this is what it means. Dahachi Kamar Achmana, this is what the pasuk is saying. O Kesef Yitain Lo, either he gives him Kesef, O Meitav Sadosav, or he gives him the best of his field. V'hadlo Ayri Rav Huna Hacha. Now why didn't Rav Huna bring this up earlier? We already asked this question a while ago. Mishum Deboy La Suke Lamilsa de Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbi Akiva, because we wanted to finish the discussion involving Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, Debo Le'el Yisrael Kashein Shaman Oso B'Shalo Ein Shaman V'Chulu. They asked a question earlier, how do you evaluate what's considered the best? V'Yad Hacha Kamayri V'Ozel, and so therefore they finished that discussion, and now we have Rav Huna's answer. And then the Gemara again said Shava Kesef V'Ata Amar Kesef. We see that even Shava Kesef is okay, but Rav Huna is saying Kesef or Meitav. And the Gemara answered to that, but the less leilo kesef v'lo sadus. If the person has no money and no fields, then he can pay even in subin. Now, what might you have said that we tell the mazik zil tarach v'zavin that you have to go and be the one to bother and sell the subin, sell the bran, bekesef for money, v'yaisi le kesef, and then bring him kesef kamash malon. That's where Rav Huna is teaching us that is not the case. He can pay in subin in a situation where he does not have kesef and he does not have land. And the Gemara continues. Amar Ravasi says kesafim harehen kekarka. Money is the equivalent of land. The Gemara says lamai hilchasa. Well, what does Ravasi mean when he says that money is the equivalent of land? Ilay malinyan meitav. If you say that what he means is in terms of meitav, meaning you can either pay, he can pay the best of his fields, or he can pay money. So Haina de Rav Huna. So then Ravasi would be saying the exact same thing of Rav Huna, and it should have said V'chein Amar Ravasi. Similarly, Ravasi says. So Ella rather, what does Ravasi mean? L'shnei achem shecholku. The situation is you have two brothers. They have an inheritance. They divide up the property. V'natal echad karka v'echad ksafim. One of them takes land, and one of them takes money. Uva balcho v'natal karka. Then a creditor comes along and takes the land away from the person, from the brother who took the land. Da'azal hai v'shakel palga b'chsafim. In the Chiddush, when we're saying Ksafim is like Karka, this person who got the land taken away from him, this brother, he can go to the other brother and split the money with that other brother. The Gemara says, Pshita, well, isn't that obvious? Hi brava, hi lavbra. Is this one a son and this one is not a son? The Gemara continues, Ika de'amri, there are those that say, Adarabali idach gisa. On the contrary, you can actually make the argument the other direction. The Amar lei, because the one brother can say to the other, the brother who took money can say to the brother who took land, Lahachi shakli kasafim, the reason why I took money is the mignavi lo mishtalam naminach. For example, if it gets stolen from me, then I'm not going to collect from you, I'm not going to take from you. Ulahachi shakal ta'aren, the reason why you took land, the mitzvah that if it gets taken by a creditor, lo mishtal malach midimino, you're not going to get anything from me. So on the contrary, in such a situation, it could be the brother can say, you can't take the money from me, because everybody took what they took on the understanding that there are certain potential losses that are involved. And Rashi explains, V'shakil palga b'ksafim, again, the one who the land is taken away from, so he can go to the other brother and take half of the money, imachiv, with his brother, v'hainu d'kamer, that's what it means, harein kakarka, that it's the same as karka. The bal ksafim nami, yipara chatzi chovo shalav, what it essentially means is, the person who took money also has to pay. He also owes for half of the debt of the father. The Gemara said, hi bra, v'hai lo bra, is this one a son and this one is not a son? Bitmiya, it's a wonder, kalamar bal ksafim lo have bra, lefroa chovav, if you think that the one who took the money is not considered one of the sons, he doesn't have to pay the debt of his father, aval bal karka have bra, but the one who took karka, he is a son, he has to pay. Ika diamri, there are those that say, we ask the other direction. The Bal Ksafim lo l'chayiv, the one who took money should absolutely not be chayiv. Because he's able to say, again, we each took what we took with that understanding. And so the Gemara continues, Ella rather, what does it mean when Ravasi says Ksafim harein kakarka? It's referring to the following case. L'shnei achem shecholku. Again, we're talking about two brothers who divided the property. Uva bal chov and not al chelko shalachad mihen. And then the bal chov, the creditor, came and he took the property from one of them. In this situation, the two brothers divided a property. We're talking specifically about land, and the creditor is taking the land of one of them. And so we're saying in that situation, as Rashi explains, Uva bal chov and not al chelko echad the mishalim lo ha'achar chatzi chelko. Now the other one does owe, the person who the land wasn't taken from, he owes the other brother, he has to pay half of his portion, o karka. Now he can either pay him in land, o mesalik le bezuze, or he can give him money, that's fine. V'hainu harein kakarka, that's what it means, it's like karka. The matzi mesalik le bezuze kevakarka, it simply means that he's able to pay him off with money if he wants to, instead of karka. That's what it means to say that kasafim harein kakarka. And so the Gemara continues, if that's the case, that Ravasi was saying kasafim harein kakarka, that he can pay back the other brother with money just like land. Ve'amra Ravasi chadazimna, but Ravasi actually already said that one time. To Itmar, because it was stated the following machlukas amuroyim. Ha'achem shecholku v'bal chov v'nat al chelko shalachan mehem. Same case as we had above. Brothers divide property, and the creditor comes and he takes the property of one of them. We have a three-way machlukas amuroyim. What happens in that situation? Rav Amarav says botla machlukas, that original division of the property is nullified, and they have to redivide the property among themselves. Ushmuel Amar viter, but Shmuel says no, it's a loss. The brother who the property was taken away from, he cannot be reimbursed at all. He loses out. Ravasi says notel ravia bakarka u ravia bamos. Ravasi says he can take a quarter. He's not able to get fully reimbursed, but he can take a quarter of the other brother's property, and that quarter can either be bakarka, it can either be with land, or it can be b'mos, it can be with money. You see over here, Ravasi already said this idea that ksafim harein kakarka, the person can pay either with land or with money. Rashi says, Batla Machlokas, again, the original division is completely nullified according to Rav, and they redivide. Osa Chaluka Betela, that division that they did is nullified. V'chozrim v'cholkem b'shav ha'chelek hanisher. They just divide whatever is left, they divide that equally. Viter, Shmuel said, Avad, he actually loses out, it was taken away from him, he's not reimbursed. And Ravasi says, Ravia Bakarka, Yachzer lo Ravia Chalko, he's got to give him a quarter of his portion. O Karka Omos, either land or money, Uravia Bamos, when it says and a quarter of money, it actually means O Ravias Bamos, it means or a quarter in money. We have a similar idea over there in Yavamas where it sounds like it's saying and, but it also means over there, it means to say or. In any case, it's Ravia Bakarka or it's a Ravia Bamos. The Gemara now explains the positions of Rav, Shmuel, and Ravasi. Rav Amar Batla Machlokas. Rav says that the original division is nullified. Why? Because he understands when brothers divide up property, they're considered to be like inheritors. It's like we say, once you divide up the property and this person takes a particular piece of land, the other brother takes the other piece of land, they're like inheritors of that specific piece of land. We're essentially saying like Brera. We see retroactively this was the land you inherited all along. Rashi says, Kayorshim dam, where they're like inheritors. What it really means is, V'al shneim lifroa, meaning they both have an equal obligation to pay. Hilkach mechetzes chalko yachzerlo. Therefore, if one of the brothers paid and not the other, one of them paid the creditor and not the other, so now they're equal and they have to divide up whatever is remaining. Ushmuel Amar, but Shmuel says, no, Viter, the person loses out. Why? Kasavar ha'achem shechalku lekuchos. Because what's actually happening is when the brothers divide up the property, it's like they're purchasing from one another. Uchilokeach shelo b'achrayis dami, and it's similar to a person who's purchasing something, but there's no achrayas, there's no responsibility taken by the seller, and therefore if it gets taken away from one of the brothers, that brother cannot be reimbursed. And the Gemara continues, Ravasi Amar, Ravasi says, Noto Ravia Bakarko Ravia Bamos, the brother takes a quarter of the other brother's property, either of land or of money, and the reason for Ravasi is Mesafkale, because he's actually in doubt. Are we saying that they're like inheritors, then he's entitled to be fully reimbursed, as we just said? Maybe no, maybe they're considered like they purchased from one another, and therefore it's a suffix really if he should be reimbursed. That's why he only gets a quarter. Hilkach, therefore, notel Ravia Bakark or Ravia Bamos. He takes a quarter either of land or of money. And Rashi says, Ikalakuchos Damu, again, Ravasi is Mesupik, he's not sure, is the brother when they are the brothers when they divide, like Yorshim or Lakuchos. If it's Lakuchos Vein Lo Olav Klum, then he's not entitled to be reimbursed at all. Hilkach Ravia Meoso Chelak Hamagir Yipar. Therefore, he pays him just a quarter. To have a suffix moment, it's a situation of a suffix whether he's entitled to reimbursement. V'chol Maman Hamutal B'Suffix Cholkim, when you have a situation of suffix like that, we divide. Vein Notel Imo El Ravia, he only gets a quarter, he doesn't get half the property. V'alo Yachol Asalko O Bekarka O Bemos, and he's able to pay him off either with land or with money. Rashi says, Lishna Achrina, there is another understanding. What does it mean? Ravia Bekarka or Ravia Bemos, or Ravia Bemos Mamish Levad Ravia Bekarka V'hainu Harein Kakarka. The other understanding is actually that no, the brother actually pays him a quarter in land and a quarter in money, and the understanding according to that would be Mesafkale Ikayorshin Damu. So then the doubt would be as follows: are they considered like inheritors? V'chayiv l'hachzer lo mechtes chelko karka. Then he'd actually have to give him half of his actual land. V'lo yachol l'salko b'mos. He's not able to give him money. O kilakuchos damu. Or the other possibility is that they are like they purchase from one another. Umio kilokach b'achrayis dami. According to this version, it would be like someone who purchased, but there was achrayis. There was responsibility taken by the seller, and the seller does have to pay in case it's taken away. V'chayiv l'hachzer lo mechtes mashayovad mashaibed. He has to give him half of what he lost. Avol b'mos yachol l'salko. But according to that, if it's a lokach b'achrayis, he could still give him money. Hilkach yachzer revia b'karka. Therefore, just give a quarter in land, ki yorshim, as if they were yorshim, or revia b'mos k'mocha b'achrayis, and give a quarter in money as if it was sold b'achrayis, and that's what it would mean, again, that money is like karka, because you're giving a quarter in land and a quarter in karka. V'lashon rishon shamati, but Rashi says the first understanding, that it's an actual suffix, and he only has to pay him a quarter, that's what Rashi says. He heard that explanation. And so in any case, the Gemara is now back to its original question, because Ravasi already said this idea by the brothers that we say that karka is equal to money. So what does Ravasi mean over here when he says says ksafim harein kakarka, elamai harein kakarka. Rather, what does it mean harein kakarka? Because we don't want it to be that Rav Asi is repeating the exact same halacha twice. And so the Gemara says l'inyan meitav. Really, it is talking about meitav. It's talking about a situation of damages, and Rav Asi is saying a person can pay either in land or in money. But the Gemara asks its original question, if so, hainu de Rav Huna, isn't that exactly the same as what Rav Huna said? And the Gemara says, yes, Ema, you should say, v'chein amar Rav Asi. It should be likewise Rav Asi says, meaning that Rav Asi says exactly the same as Rav Huna. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Zeira, Amar Rav Huna. Rav Zeira says that Rav Huna says, b'mitzvah ad shlish, when it comes to a mitzvah, a person has to spend up to a third. The Gemara says, mai shlish, what does that mean that the person has to spend up to a third? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amud Beis.